welcome to the Partnership for International Birding video conference on birding in the Galapagos Islands in Ecuador. This is birding by land and by boat. On the video conference today is Lelis Navarrete. And just the ground rules are pretty simple. Please mute your microphone because it creates way too much background noise. Except for we are going to have everybody ask questions one or two at a time when we have breaks during the presentation, and there will be breaks sort of naturally as Lelis goes through each day of the land-based tour. And again, it's a land and boat-based tour, so we'll sort of clarify what that means. So I'm going to take a brief introduction of Lelis, and then we're gonna start here. And some of this makes him blush, but it is true. Lelis has been a bird guide in South America for 30 years. Besides being a bird guide, he has written 2 birding field guides and now working on the third. I don't know if you're still working on that third one or not. He is the author of the Field Book of the Birds of Ecuador and the Field Guide to the Galapagos Islands, covering birds, mammals, reptiles, fish, and more. He, along with his main collaborator, Mike McMullen, may be working on a field guide to the flycatchers of the Americas. I'll have to ask you later if that project is still cooking. Lelis is recognized by many bird watchers as the top birding field guide in all of South America, with 3 decades experience since 1991. He's been guiding birders all over South America. His extensive field experience has taken him throughout most of South America. His home country is Ecuador. He has guided all over Ecuador over the last 30 years, including the Galapagos, which I just learned he started in 1998. He's led at least 22 field trips to the Galapagos, probably closer to 25. He's led over 300 field trips in South America over the last 30 years, and probably closer to 400 if we sat down and counted them all. His field skills are legendary, with the ability to recognize by vocalization some 2,400 South American bird species, and his ability to sort out nearly 8,000 bird vocalizations truly blows me away. He has the amazing ability to hear birds at great distances, and I have seen him identify birds at over 100 yards, and the ability to hear quiet chips where I hear nothing. Lelis, together with Robert Ridgely, discovered the Toko ant pit at a nude bird to science in 1997. So a very well accomplished ornithologist and birding guide professional is Lelis Navarrete. With no further ado, I will give him the stage, and I will hush my microphone up. I'm hushing. You can start.
Well, to start with, thank you to all for giving us your time and your interest in in our work and in the Galapagos Islands. I don't know if well, I hope all things that Charles said about me are true. I don't know about that, but anyway, so I want to start right away with our presentation, right? No more delays. So let's go on. Let's carry on to start with. Starting by saying that one of this, well, I want to start just briefly with a brief information about what the islands are and where they are before we jump into the details of the tours, right? So. The Galapagos Islands are part of the Ecuadorian state, and we all together in Ecuador will have 1,722 species according with the IOC checklist, including in there we have 171 species that are also found in the Galapagos Islands, 31 of them are endemics to the islands and for Ecuador too. Right. So the islands are basically almost 1,000 kilometers away west of mainland Ecuador. That's roughly 596 miles, or let's say 600 miles off the Ecuadorian coast. The other islands that are closer to Galapagos is actually Cocos Islands from Costa Rica, right? Then the islands itself, they comprehend an area of 8,000 square kilometers. As I said before, they have 31 endemic species and roughly, I think there's 15 more subspecies that are only found in the Galapagos Islands. Talking about bird species. So the archipelago is formed of 3 big islands that are bigger than 10 square kilometers. Those being Isabela, Puerto Llora, and Fernandina. There are 6 smaller islands, 40 islets with official names. And there are many named islets and rocks too, right? Now, how's birding in the Galapagos Island? How we bird in the islands? So I gotta start with saying that birding the Galapagos Islands is actually very easy. Now, when you go to the islands and if you go to the right place, when your guide finds you the bird, it's where the bird will be where the guide is pointing, like in this case. And also when we talk about photography, photography is great in the islands. All wildlife, including most of the birds, except all those that are on the ocean, are the ones that are hard to photograph, right? So going with the avifauna, description of avifauna in the Galapagos Island. I think I mentioned before, overall there are 171 species recorded so far in the archipelago. 65 of them are breeding residents that we can find year round. Of them, 31 are endemic species just restricted to the archipelago, with 14 endemic subspecies. I think I mentioned 15, but I was off on one of them. And besides that, we also have wave albatross and swallowtail gull. Those well, these 4 species, Nazca booby and wedge-rump storm petrel, they are ocean birds. And even though the bulk of the population are found in the Galapagos Islands, they can be seen in other places abroad. And as well, there's, in the case of the albatross and the swallowtail gull, I think that's the case for the other 2, there are smaller populations in other islands, like close to Ecuador for the wave albatross, breeding population, close to in the Plata Island, and also for the swallowtail gull, for instance, it's in the Cocos Islands in Costa Rica. All right. So before I don't know if you want to have any questioning about the islands themselves and the birds themselves before we jump into talking about some of the details of what is to be going into on a birding tour in the islands, either by boat or by land.
Yeah, any general questions at this time? We can take a few minutes if anybody's got anything. Let me text I'm going to check. You guys can text them to us, or you can unmute and ask away. And we'll take another, I don't know, probably 6 or 7 question breaks throughout the presentation. Any general questions at this time? Hearing none, I will mute back up, and the floor is back to you, Mr. Navarrete.
So yeah, carry on. So birding by boat in the Galapagos Islands is actually when what has been done lately. Most of the birding companies throughout the world, they allocate one of the boats that they have a particular 2 different routes that they like, and they pretty much offer a great number of endemics. So they chart their boat for a week, 10 days, in some cases 10 days, 12 days. It all depends on the boat. And lately, what I have learned from most of other companies, what they have been doing is a combination of a land-based tour and a charting of a boat. So they go for 7 days or 8 days on a boat, and then they do also part of what we're doing as well by land. And even though people can go and join any particular boat in the islands, and they even big liners going there, like that take 90 people, 100 people, and you can still see some of the endemic species of the islands. But the bigger the boat is, the less species you will see. And when you go with a birding company, they are making sure that the boat you're going is visiting the particular sites that have a great potential for finding or allowing you, the group, to see the species they are looking for in the particular island. So I'm going to show you briefly. This is there's actually 4 itineraries that are coming from one single boat. So the red lines are describing the different islands they are visiting, and also when you read their description, they talk about the different activities they perform in the islands. So, for instance, this is one single boat. In this case, they're doing they call the itinerary A. So they visit the Central Islands. In itinerary, this case B, they're visiting the Central Island, 2 of the Central Islands, and they go west. Right? They have C and D, where they do the Central Islands, north and south, of not going at all on the west. And on a D, they do the Central Islands, do the west, but they don't do the Southern Islands, neither the Eastern ones, right? So in a sense, when doing or picking up a boat to go to the Galapagos Islands, you got to be careful with what is the itinerary that the boat has, what are the different sites that the boat is visiting in the island, and then within that information also, what are the particular activities each boat is doing in the site. Because you could end up going to a site and doing snorkeling and not going out in land when you want to be there. So that's one of the situations that when we do a land-based tour, we sort of make sure that the islands we are going and the particular sites we're visiting are the ones that we want to do to find the birds there. Now, as I said before, and we've also done not so long ago my last trip on boat, and I know some of my friends and colleagues from other companies are doing this. As I said before, they pick up a particular boat that they like, the itinerary and the sites they visit and what the activities are, and they go along with it, right? Therefore, if you are intending birding, don't go by yourself. Go with a good company, or come join us in one of these land-based tours. You'll get much more out of and a better experience by doing this than just doing it by yourself. It'll be actually quite difficult and complicated to find all the details that require you to visit and do the proper birding in the Galapagos Islands. All right. So, but yes, besides being on the boats, normally the boats are these kinds of boats. They hold 20 passengers maximum. So they have the naturalist guide from the national park, the crew members, plus the birding guide, if there's one along, and the trip participants. Often you do some dinghy rides to get offshore. Sometimes they are either wet landings or dry landings when you go on shore, on sandy beaches or rocky shores, or when there are piers too. There's also, even when you do by boat trip in the islands, when you are on a boat for extended periods of time or sleeping in the boat, you go in certain islands, go visit certain sites on the island that require you to go in bus. Like if you go visit some areas in San Cristobal or Isabella Island, Santa Cruz Island, it requires you to go by car too. Now, so we're gonna jump to, I don't know if, since our speech was not about talking in detail about the boat, birding the Galapagos Islands by boat, I want to try to jump now on birding by land, but I don't know if anybody has any question, can clarify or give you some hints if anybody wants to know something else about it.
I have a question.
Yep.
Yes, my name is Juliette Lamont. Thank you so much for being here. As when in thinking about tours and companies, I know that the Galapagos has had a lot of environmental destruction in the last years, and the regulations around tours and companies are getting stricter, which is good, I think, for the environment. How do you work with, or do you work with the local environmental organizations to ensure that your tours, I know you're very good, so I'm just wondering how we separate out the companies and boats and tours that are doing good things and the ones that aren't doing good things, because there are a lot that are not considered that great. And I think the Galapagos Conservancy sort of gives a stamp of approval to some, but I think that's partly based on some of those donating to the Conservancy itself. So I'm not, yeah.
Thanks, Julia. Well, in a sense, the Galapagos, pretty much all Galapagos, except a small percentage of the islands, are part of a national park.
Mm-hmm.
As such, they are regulated by the government, and we have the Galapagos Park Service running the whole business there. So when you go visiting the park, most of the areas where we go birding, in our cases, we got to play with the rules of the national park services and the Galapagos park too. Therefore, it's not only that we go by ourselves, we got to go, no matter where we go, always with the company of certified Galapagos guide. And in a sense, the Galapagos guide, certified Galapagos guides, are overseeing the activities of the tourism, not only guiding, but also overseeing what activities are performed or not. So that's one of the you can say one of the steps that sort of controls what the in the islands we're visiting. Then secondly, we also work throughout a Galapagos-based company. We have an operator in the Galapagos Islands. This is a family that have been friends of mine for a long time ago, since I first visited the islands. And so there's local people that they know the regulations, the rules, and they're up to date with all what is going on in the Galapagos Islands. And so there's the second layer of control in that aspect. And we also have the park rangers that we see here and there in their normal activities. So that's what I can tell you about. But any tour visit to anywhere in the world, it all goes, at the end, it goes to the behavior of the people and the behavior of the company and the tour leader in the group. So you could join people that could care less about what happens with nature, and all what matters for them is get a tick or a photo of an bird for them. And for the people that know me, that was the case. I am a biologist. I went into birding and in biology because I love birding and nature and birds. And for me, it's always been much more important nature and the birds than the birders and myself. So that's what I can say in the personal way.
Great, thank you. That's really helpful to hear. Good to hear.
Thanks for that answer. I really didn't know how you were going to approach it, and kind of in a funny way, when they sort of went into deeper regulations on the Galapagos about, you were speculating 15 years ago. I feel it's closer to 10, but I really don't know. I mean, I just don't remember. The pandemic time frame has screwed up my sense of time. But I just know that we used to run these boat-based tours, and then, we couldn't go to all the islands we wanted to because of sort of regulatory reasons. And then when we developed this land-based tour, in a sense, it's a little more environmentally responsible because you're not, sleeping and living on a boat, dumping fuel into the water. But, the bottom line is I sort of agree with your perspective, Lelis, that any ecotourism activity does have an environmental impact, whether we like it or not. And, we burn gasoline to get there. We burn fuel to get there from planes, etc. I just think we do our best on the practices that we have. So that was an interesting answer. Any other good questions out there, Juliet? Or excuse me, I'm not supposed to mention people's names. Any other good questions out there? We do appreciate them. That was a great one. And we had a question about the number of islands on the in the Galapagos, but we'll cover that again at the end. We did cover it on one of the first slides, but we'll go back to that slide at the end of the presentation. Any other questions out there? Great. I'm going to give you the floor again, Lelis, Navarrete. I'm going to review any questions texted to me really quick here. Woo. Oh, there's a question about which of the 4 routes that we take. So the answer is we take none of those routes. We do a land-based tour that covers I don't know. Well, he's gonna do you have
I'm gonna go into it now.
Yeah, we're gonna go into it now. We're gonna jump to that right now. I'm gonna give you the thing back. I'm gonna shush, and we'll cover more of these questions later. That was a good question there, sir. And we're gonna explain these differences. I'm trying to find my mute button. The floor is yours. I'm muted again.
All right. So going on the details of what we do on, we call them birding by land, but it's not. That's basically because we stay overnight in a hotel in one of the cities in one of the 4 populated islands in the Galapagos. But we also go on these dinghy rides, sometimes from the big islands, and sometimes from again, if we are staying overnight in one of the cities, we also go, by bus or by some sort of motorized transportation to the birding site or the visitor site to perform birding, nature sightseeing. But we also go on smaller boats. Sometimes we get these full day trip on a boat, sailing from where the city or the island we're staying into a different island to perform our visit. All right, so talking about the itinerary and what we do in this in our itinerary. So yes, as Charles mentioned before, no, we don't do any of those 4 itineraries that I described. This is a trip that we designed especially for trying to see most of the endemics. So we basically visit 4 islands in various different sites. So the main islands we start in Santa Cruz Island. We're moving there. Then we go to Isabela, 2 different sites. Then we fly over to San Cristobal, Puerto Moreno, to visit San Cristobal Island. And then we have a boat, a day trip boat ride into Espanola in the south. So that's the itinerary we do. And we basically do it in 8 full days, right? So we start, I want to jump already into what we do. So starting with a flight in Quito or Guayaquil, it all depends on what the setup is. We can all join on the plane as we go to Baltra. That's where the airport in Santa Cruz is located. It's actually a small island off in the north side of Santa Cruz Island is where Baltra is located. So Santa Cruz has got a road that cuts the island almost half the way through, north to south. Puerto Ayora, the city where we stay, it's located in the south side of the more wetter areas in the island, all over in the southern side, where there's more water available and it's better for living. So yeah, we start with riding a bus to get Puerto Ayora, and in our way, we already come and visit some of in our first day, we're already doing some of our first visits as we move along from the airport to the city. All right, so that implies that for the afternoon, we already have two visits. There's a couple of sinkholes, they call them twin craters, but that's one of the sites we go visit there. And also we go close to the, in a private area, it's outside of the park, but boundaries the park, Rancho Primicias, where we go visit the Galapagos giant tortoises grounds, but also we do some birding there. That's the first day of activity. So we stay one night in Puerto Ayora. Next day in the morning, we go visit. There's a site in the Maiconia area, a much higher elevation, where we go look for the Galapagos rail, especially, and we also visit Charles Darwin Station. So we in Santa Cruz, we spent a pretty good amount of time, and we visit basically all the different habitats that the island has to offer for us. Right. So this is just, I'm going to go briefly with some of the most easy birds to see in Santa Cruz. In the twin craters, there's always short-eared owls, sometimes sitting by the hand railings when we're lucky. Some of the warblers, this photo was, I think, is also taken in the twin craters. Green warbler finch, they're quite obliging. They could be quite bold and close. I mean, I think this picture was I took with my cell phone, not even with a camera. And he's the woodpecker finch. Probably Santa Cruz is one of the best islands to look for this species. As well, on the city itself, by the fish market, we also go to do some birding. Believe it or not, that's one of the best places to look for lava gull. This photo was taken again, handheld with my cell phone, and this is a rarity amongst the rare. This is a lava gull, and it's a leucistic bird. Pretty rare. I think it's quite famous. Some of people that we do birding know about this bird, and we have had long discussions about it. But you know, the population of lava gull is small, and there's a couple of them that have some degree of leucism, probably related to the fact that there's some interbreeding already going in there. So, as I mentioned again, in the Rancho Primicias, a private area, we go to the where the giant Galapagos tortoises roam around freely, meaning the site is actually fenced off the park, but these guys, believe it or not, just push through the barbed wire or the wire and the fence to come in and out of the park at will. So I don't know if anybody has any questions about the first part, the first 2 days of birding in Santa Cruz.
Yeah. Any other questions out there? I'm going to look at the text. I think a lot of these questions we've covered. Go ahead and either unmute and ask away or text a question over. Having a little problem with my text bar, but I think we're doing okay. Any other questions out there? There was a question about the route, but I think Lelis covered that very well. You can contrast the route slide there with the one we did earlier in the thing. But the first four were sort of the basic 4 routes that the park approves for the boats. Before, about 10 or 15 years ago, you could charter a boat to do whatever you wanted. Now these basic 4 routes are kind of the 4 basic routes you get if you
really no, that's not the case. There are actually so many boats, and each boat has got its own route. Some are similar to the one. This was just an example, but like 30 boats doing different routes, different times of the different days of the week, visiting different sites. That's how the park, diverts the number of people visiting a particular site a given day. So
unlike,
varies.
right. So you're absolutely right. I should have clarified that. Before the regulations took place, you could go all over the islands by yacht and get a bulk of the endemic species, never all, but the bulk of them. With the new regulations, the boat trips that you book, which are typically 8 days, 7 nights, you're constrained to just these 4 different places, but different mixes of those 4 different places. It's sort of hard to explain that, but because there are a lot of choices. But the bottom line, if you book a yacht-based tour like you find online or something, you're going to miss a lot of endemic species, and you're also going to have to live on a boat. Fair enough answer, sir?
Sure. Yes.
Yes. Okay, good. So we answered the question about the route. Again, you happen to know the island answer off the top of your head? There's 3 main islands and about 6 others, but then there's
3 and 6.
Yeah. So
smaller islets and rocks. So there are 9 like big islands.
Yeah. So 9 islands, another 14 small little islets with names, and then lots of other little rocks and islets that don't have names because they're just small little places. Good. I think we've got all the questions caught up. Any other questions, folks? And if we didn't answer you, feel free to unmute and chime in. Anything else? Good. I think we'll tackle a couple other days and we'll plug along. I'm going to mute up again.
All right. So summarizing our 2 first days of activities, we land in Baltra, drive across Puerto Ayora. In the way, we visit 2 different sites in the highlands, including the ones we saw. We look for the giant tortoises and many other birds, and birds especially. Then we spend a night in our first night in Puerto Ayora. Next day, we do the highlands again to a higher area to look for the Galapagos rail, which we mainly have managed to see every single time we've gone there. We have not missed it yet. So far, we have been running these land-based tours. And in the second afternoon of our stay in the islands, we go visit the Charles Darwin Station. So we oversee the work the National Park Service is doing with the conservation and all the different programs they're running in the islands. And as well, we do birding in there because this is a dry arid zone by the city of Puerto Ayora. And while we do this guided visit to Charles Darwin Station, we also do birding while we go there. So after a second night in Puerto Ayora, we take a public transportation speedboat ride from Puerto Ayora, the central and the bigger where the bigger population, the bigger city of the island is, and we ride along all the way, pretty much just west to Puerto Villamil in Isabela Island. So once in Isabela, we normally arrive in the late morning. We go out, do some birding close to the city itself, where there's some brackish lagoons, and we go look for the flamingos and some other water birds that are around. There's also a dry arid zone where some of the wildlife and bird life from the arid zones can be seen. And we also visit some of in the afternoon. We go visit the Galapagos giant tortoises breeding center, and we also do some birding that day in that area. So we stay one night there. Our first night in Isabela. For the second day activity in Isabella, we have a boat ride that goes all the way around the west side of the archipelago, basically just to see the flightless cormorant, where the better population is in the west side of the islands, better seen around the island of Fernandina, which doesn't have inhabitants. There's a couple of visitor sites only where boats can go. And those are the Fernandina can only be visited by these boat tours, cruising boats we've been talking about. So the better places to see the flightless cormorants between Isabella and Fernandina. We go to a site where the population it's got the first breeding grounds of the flightless cormorant. That's our main goal. In the way, we also have allocated a site where there's a big colony of the Galapagos martin nesting. That's one of the birds we also see in that tour. And as part of the experience of that day, we have also the chance of doing a couple of snorkelings. And so we don't only go for birds, but we also do some snorkeling and, of course, other wildlife viewing. We come back to Puerto Villamil, where we stay one more night. Following day, we do a bus ride up to the highlands in Isabella to the volcano, Sierra Negra volcano, where again, pretty much early morning birding activity. One of the best places to see the Vermilion Flycatcher. Now, it's a split already. It's a new species for science. Some want to call it the Brujo Flycatcher, others want to call it the Darwin's Flycatcher. So it's the Vermilion Flycatcher type from the Galapagos Islands. And forgetting even as well that the Galapagos, the Vermilion Flycatcher from San Cristobal Island is also considered a separate species, but sadly enough, apparently the bird is extinct and it's not being seen for several decades already. So back to our itinerary. And so once we visit the highlands where we see the Darwin's Flycatcher or the Brujo Flycatcher, Vermilion form of the Vermilion type flycatcher from the islands, we come back down, and then we have our flight to in this case, we have a small, they're Cessna type planes that take from 4 to 6 passengers. We fly from Puerto Villamil all the way to Puerto Vaquerizo Moreno in San Cristobal Island. And so here we have a description of the activities again, mentioning what we do in Isabella, some of the same sites I described. And again, these are some of the best places to see the Galapagos penguin, flightless cormorant, flamingos, and going back again to continue with the main itinerary. I don't know if you have any questions about Isabella and the activities there.
Yeah, any questions about the sort of Isabella part of the trip? And again, you get flightless cormorant, Galapagos penguin. I'll call it Darwin's Flycatcher. What the heck? I don't know. He deserves a bird name. He's got his finches, I guess, but it is a handsome bird, right? I'd like to be named after a Vermilion Flycatcher, a Vermilion type flycatcher. Any questions out there at all? They are welcome. Either text them or unmute and call them. And I love the unmute questions if you feel like going there. Any questions at all? We'd love them. All right. Again, you can text him in the middle of the presentation, or we'll probably have one or two more unmute opportunities, and then we'll do a wrap up at the end. But time-wise, we're doing just fine here today. Any other questions before we move on? Hearing none, I will mute and we'll give the chair back to Lelis Navarrete. Thanks, man.
All right, so then we continue again after flying from Isabela and Puerto Villamil to Puerto Vaquerizo Moreno, San Cristobal Island. That afternoon, after arrival, we go visit close by site the coastal area of Puerto Vaquerizo Moreno. So there's some chance already to see the San Cristobal Mockingbird. You know, there are 4 mockingbird species. The common one is the one that is all over the archipelago, especially in the central and the west, is the Galapagos Mockingbird. And we have I think it's called Charles Mockingbird, the one in San Cristobal. I want to call it the San Cristobal Mockingbird because it's all over the islands. As it would be one of the places to see it the afternoon, our first afternoon. And so we stayed our first night in the islands, and in our hotel in San Cristobal. And after from San Cristobal, we have this in 2 different days. In each day, we have a boat ride for the day. So our first boat ride take us across the southeastern end of the island where the city is, to the southwest side of the island, to the northeast side of the island, to Punta Pit, where there's a trail, there's a nice sandy beach, wet landing. We go into short trail up into the island itself. That's one of the places. Punta Pit is one of the places where we can see the 2 frigate bird species nesting at the same place. And along the trail, the 3 different types of boobies can be seen, you know, inland while they are in their nesting grounds. Red, blue, and Nazca. Red and blue footed booby and Nazca booby in the same location. They do differ in the area of the trail where they can be found, but they all can be seen in that site. And there's of course some birding along the way as we progress in our boating over the island and in the way back. There's also again some activities for snorkeling, some downtime for snorkeling as well. So back to the town, we spend one more night there. Next day, in the early morning, again, we go into a boat that take us to the southern and the oldest island, to Espanola, where we go visit for the day again, Punta Suarez, here in the eastern corner of the island. And that's a place again where the Espanola, I think it's Hood in this case, Espanola and Hood, the English name Hood, Espanola island for Espanola Mockingbird, and that's where the colony of the huge colony of the wave albatross can be seen among other species. So, quick review of some images of the activities and from San Cristobal itself and Espanola in the south. As I mentioned again, there's you can see the 2 frigate birds nesting together. At times, you can see them side by side, 2 species in the same field of view, and you blind them, you step away from them. In this case, we have great with the green gloss on the back and magnificent with the purplish gloss on the back. You can see the difference on the species, the color of the back. And then again, the 3 different species of boobies on the ground. While we're in the islands, we always can find them flying around. Blue-footed boobies as a common species in the shallow waters around the archipelago, they can be seen even from the piers around the cities as well. And in this case, it's a photo of the booby that likes to be more. It's a more pelagic species, therefore he likes to be in the outer rim of the archipelago. Funny enough, the common one, the blue-footed booby, is the one that have the smaller population. The bigger population is the one we don't see. The red-footed booby is the most numerous species in the island, and they have these big colonies on some of the outer rim of the islands where they nest, and they fly off, way off in deeper waters where they feed. So they are less seen than the blue-footed booby, even though they are more common, they are more numerous. Now going to the mistake, the waved albatross, a D for R. So it's waved albatross, an iconic species that's a nesting grounds. We try to avoid our tours from December to April because that's warmer waters when even though we can see year round the wave albatross, can always find them. And sometimes there's one or two still left in the island on ground. And you can see them also floating on the year round. You can see them floating around the Espanola Island when you go there, or you can see one flying in the archipelago there when you're navigating. But the main goal of doing the tour in the cold water season, June, July, August, September, October, even to November, it's to get these guys on ground when they're displaying or they're raising their chicks. Espanola is also a great place to look for Galapagos hawk. There's a pair that has their hunting territories right by the trail when we go visit for the waved albatross colony. One of the first I always camp up close once you arrive to the island is the Espanola Mockingbird. Here noticeably, this mockingbird is one of the species that have the longest beak of all. You can see that in this up close picture. This picture is also taken with my cell phone handheld. So once we finish our day boat trip to Espanola back to San Cristobal, we are ready to head back in the morning flight to mainland Ecuador. And that's pretty much it about what we do in the tour. Next, I'm going to talk what we don't do and why, and what we can, what we can do beyond of what we have already laid out in terms of our birding activities and the species we go look for. So I don't know if anybody has any other questions about it.
You might be about to say, can you repeat again? I missed the time that you don't go because of nesting chicks is what month?
Yeah, we avoid the warmer season, that is December, January, February, and part of March. That's when the wave albatrosses are not in Espanola. I mean, we find them flying around in the archipelago. We can find them also floating out of the shore of Espanola commonly, sometimes in other islands as well. But the colony is pretty much spread all over the Pacific Ocean. They just go one of the huge distances to feed on mainly squid, and they just build up fat until the breeding season calls them back. They find each other because they are pairs by life. They once they form a pair, they find each other for the next breeding season, and they come back to this Espanola Island, starting late March, June. They already sitting on the grounds, starting to display.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? That was a good one. Many questions out there, folks. All right. I will give you the calm here, and we're getting towards the wrap up, correct, sir? I'll let you do your thing.
Yeah. So anyway, even if you go any month in the year, we can go and you can see most of the species. There's 24 that we mentioned already, including the wave albatross. It's not that we won't see them displaying, or we won't see them in their colony. That's a different issue. If you go in the early stage of their season, let's say the wave albatross season, late March to June, or towards the end of their season, which will be even to January, it depends on the year. So if you go on the start, they will be displaying to each other, doing this courtship, the dancing, the complex display they have. And if you go towards the end, you can go towards the end when the chicks are just jumping off the cliff, when they are just getting getting their wings strong enough, facing the wind, and then jumping off the cliff for their first flight in their lives. So it all depends on when you go, but basically you can see wave albatross year round in the islands. It's not that you miss them, it's how you want to see them. Right. So now I'm gonna go on to what islands we don't visit, right? And basically why. So some of the important islands we don't visit, and therefore, of course, we also have Darwin and Wolf that will be way out here in the northeast of the archipelago, the ones I mentioned, where the viper groundfinch can be seen, but only scuba diving boats go over there. So there's no birding tour that I know goes to those islands so far. Darwin and Wolf off the chart in here. So here in the north, we have one of the most interesting islands. This is Genovesa. Genovesa is a small island. It's actually a crater. It's a crater of a volcano which collapsed in apart. So it's got a horseshoe shape, basically, with a inner deep water inside. And that's so far I know only the boats that have this these routes allocated for them are the ones that can go. There's nobody is doing day tours there. It's forbidden. So the only way to visit this Genovesa and the birds are there, it's by taking a boat. So remember that I mentioned that some colleagues and other companies are doing, what they're doing is they go on a tour with, for 4 days or so, they can go visit Genovesa, and they have the experience of seeing the birds there. And normally what they can choose is Genovesa, which only can be visited by boat on a tour for a week, when you take the by boat tour, and combine it with Santiago Island. It's one of the inner islands. Many of the boat tours visit Santiago because it's one of the close islands, and it's got several iconic sites to visit. And I'm gonna come on to the species in a short while again, but I'm just laying out first the islands. And the other one, I think I mentioned before, sorry, Fernandina, we don't visit because Fernandina, if you're visiting already Isabela, you can see pretty much the same species in both. They're across a narrow channel in there that keeps on shrinking because these volcanoes are very active. And who knows, in a couple hundred years, a couple thousand years, these islands will be together, because Fernandina is one of the most active volcanoes. So are the volcanoes on the north side of Isabela. Anyway, so then the fourth island in the archipelago we don't visit is Puerto Velasco, Floriana, in the southern side. Floriana is one of the islands that was for a long time have held the impact of human beings. It's the smallest city, but it's the one that was visited for historically since the history of the islands by whalers, pirates, right from the beginning. It's the place where most of the fresh water was and still is in the islands. Interesting enough, don't know why it never grew up to have an importance for having now times a small city like it is the case in Puerto Ayora, San Cristobal in the west, Santa Cruz in the middle, and Isabela. So Floriana we don't visit, but Floriana is something that we could go also as an extension. We could prepare some extra day or a couple extra days to visit Floriana. It's easy because they have a port where they even have public transportation to Floriana. All right, so I think we mentioned this already. There are some species we don't see. We can't. And the reason why here I'm going to explain why we don't see these species. So there's these first two, Floriana Mockingbird and medium tree finch, are in Floriana, the island we are not visiting, but we can do an extension to visit or to try to see both. Both are being rare. Medium tree finch is in the highlands of Floriana. And what we know already, it seems that the bird is interbreeding with the smaller size small tree finch. So God knows what is going to happen with this species in the future, but we still can't find a true medium tree finch in the highlands of Floriana. And the mockingbird itself is gone from mainland. There's two different islets of Floriana where if you go for, you sign on a snorkeling activity that goes close to, especially one of the islets, you can, while doing the dinghy ride for the snorkeling, you can go see from the distance the mockingbird, the Floriana mockingbird. All right, so mangrove finch is the bird in the picture you're seeing. This is a mangrove finch that I took a long time ago. I don't remember, probably 14, 15 years ago. There's a picture of one of the few living pairs of mangrove finch, one of the rarest birds of the world. This bird cannot be visited. The site is somewhere along the western the western central area of Isabela, close to Fernandina, across the channel there. There's some mangrove forests where the stronghold of the population is. Visitors are banned. Only researchers and the park rangers that do service for the national park are the ones that are allowed to visit there. That's a species off the range for anyone so far, unless you volunteer yourself to go help them in their project, or if you're lucky enough to get invited by the National Park Service or something. That would be the only way to see that bird, but nobody doing a tour goes and sees this bird now. Sharpie groundfinch. Sharpie groundfinch is a species, it's a fairly common bird. It can be seen in Santiago and Fernandina. So again, if you, after doing one of these land-based tours, you can join a short tour that goes to Genovesa and visit Santiago. You'll be seeing some of the Genovesa birds and the Sharpie groundfinch that is also in Fernandina. Right? Two different sort of species there. And then we have, of course, Genovesa groundfinch, Genovesa cactus finch. Those are the ones that you only see if you go on these boat tours in the north and eastmost of the island, and Genovesa. And lastly, the vampire groundfinch, the one I mentioned already. That's a bird that only lives in Darwin and Wolf, these small islands way up north. And of course, I didn't put in the list the already extinct species, the San Cristobal flycatcher. type of vermilion that is now gone for bad. So I don't know if you have any questions, but that's pretty much it. As I said before, we see in this tour we are able to find 24 species, 24 of the endemic species of the islands, and we pretty much have never missed all of those 24. And we can extend this tour to get a couple more. And again, by joining one, it could be a 8 days or 5 days tour, visiting Genovesa and Santiago, you can push the number of species you see a bit more.
Yeah, so I'm gonna poke in a little bit. We've thought a lot about this tour over the last, starting about 6 years ago, and then the pandemic hit. We've run on it a couple times, but 24 endemic species versus if you do a $10,000 trip, you might get 29. You're probably going to get 27, 28. So, for basically half the price, you're getting 24 of the endemic species, maybe missing 3 that you'd get on a boat tour. I do think, like an economist, which drives some people crazy, but your price for bird for those last 3 birds is about $1,500 a bird. For most birders, that's just not worth it. Our basic tour, by the way, does include an arrival day and departure day out of Quito. And I guess that's all I have to add. Any other questions? Oh, there was a question about the lodging. So all the lodging is on the Galapagos, on the islands themselves. You don't stay on a yacht, which for a lot of people is a positive thing, because staying on a yacht implies a small room and that kind of thing. One question that I got, Lelis, was all of these hotels have 24-hour electricity?
Yes, they do. They have 24-hour electricity, air conditioning, Wi-Fi, all the convenience that any hotel in a city will provide.
And there you go. So yes to internet, yes to Wi-Fi, yes to AC. And there you go. And we, at one point in time, we had 2 different grades of lodging. I think we now just have the higher grade. But we have run tours with, I think the very first tour we had a lower grade lodging. It's not a whole lot less. It's like $200 less. It's not a lot of savings. I think now we just have the higher grade lodging on the tour. Any other questions about lodging or anything else? And feel free to unmute or text away. And we will. Yeah, shoot.
Quick question about the lodging. Is it non-smoking? The lodging you have?
Yeah, now in Ecuador, pretty much all hotels everywhere. I think this is a trend going all over. Yeah, it's a trend going all over. Most of them are non-smoking, and there are some even hotels that if people want to smoke, they can do it outside the rooms. But it's the case that many hotels that we are using, they have the rule that if you smoke in the room, which is not to be a non-smoking room, they'll produce a huge fee on the person who smokes inside, because they need to clean everything. So yes, mainly all of them are non-smoking. Yeah.
Great. That's great to hear. That's changed a lot, I know. So it's good to hear.
Yeah, and even on almost all of our birding tours, I mean, we've been in business for over 15 years, and I can name 3 smokers that we've ever had. They generally smoked away from the group, but it's very difficult to be in a van with a person who smokes just because they get smoke on their clothes. So we don't ban smokers, but they're not exactly invited back either. And most people just don't want to travel with people who smoke because they can smell it on their clothes. I'm hyper smoking sensitive. So I really am not a big smoker fan at all. And there you go. But it's amongst birders, it's not a very common thing. I do know of maybe one local birder who's a smoker, and again, in 15 years in business, I can name 3 clients who smoked, and that's it. I hate to put that out there, but it's the facts. And there you go. Any other questions? Those were good ones.
Yes, I was wondering about what the weight limit is for luggage, given that you've got boat trips and small planes involved.
Yeah. Well, that's a good question here. The biggest restriction we have there is this local flight, the flight when we go from Isabela to San Cristobal. And they have this weight limit of, I think it's 16 kilos in the check-in luggage.
So maybe about 40 pounds.
Yeah. Normally, the big plane that we take from mainland Ecuador, from Quito to Baltra, it's got the same regulations that we do in any of the international flights. I think it's 23 kilos that you can take, in one check-in bag. And that's what we have been trying to provide also to all our clients when in the tours, not only in the Galapagos and Ecuador, but throughout South America. I don't know what situation is in the rest of the world for Charles and PIB, but that's what we do in South America, including the Galapagos Islands. But yes, we'll try to restrict our weight allowance for the small flight. But again, we can also pay the extra cost for every kilo, which is not that much. I mean, I don't remember the exact number now, but going up to the 23 kilos you bring on the big plane and pay the extra, the difference 16 to 23, 7 kilos on the small plane. It's not that much. It's not, and it doesn't end up being a deal breaker. It's a very reasonable price. I don't remember at the moment from the top of my head. Yeah.
Right. And I would also say 40 pounds, given the climate of the Galapagos, is really not that hard to pack to, even with a lot of camera equipment. So I would say most clients would have no problem packing to the 40-pound weight. Even with tripods and cameras, maybe that adds, I don't know, most people seem to keep it down to about 8 or 10 pounds there. But yeah, we can sort all that stuff out. So that should not be a deal breaker for anyone. There's also a question about where was this tour on the PIB website? Boy, oh boy, Lelis Navarrete has done his part. The PIB staff we have been trying to get this up on the website for like 3 years. And you would think we would have got it done over the pandemic, but we did not. But we've just had a lot of people in the field. But we did send out the itinerary attached to the initial announcement for this presentation, including the pricing. And if you need us to, we are going to get it up on the website, I would say in the next 60 days, and then we'll e-blast it to everybody, both on this call today and anybody signed up for the call, and probably 3,500 other people. But so the website will be up, I would say, in 60 days. God, I would hope so, because all the content is done. And there was also a question about the fees of the tour. So there is $100. I think the tour we priced at about 4,500, 100, maybe 4,690 or something. But it does not include that $100 park fees. It's always best if you just bring cash and pay that Galapagos park fee when you get in. I think it's maybe 110, 120 now. Is that about right, Lelis?
It's 100 for the park and 20 for a visitor card. Right.
So that's 100 for the park and 20 for the visitor card.
They always come up with a new way of getting some more bucks out of you. So it's only $100 to visit the park, but now it's $20 to visit the islands.
Right. And we do disclose that when you register for the tour, so people know what they're paying for and what they're not. What else have we got here? We got hotels, we got lodging.
I'm sorry, what are the dates? I didn't see I'll go back to my original thing. What are the dates for the proposed tour that you're going to advertise? Do you know yet?
Yeah, we were kicking around a February, March date, but we got scheduled over by other stuff. Quite frankly, April's going to be tough too. I think October 2024 2023 will be the first date that we have. In the announcement, there was an October 2023 date. And we're probably going to try to add another one, but I mean, Lelis is really the only guide I feel is qualified to run this tour because of his expertise about the Galapagos. So he may not have availability until that October 2023 date. I mean, quite frankly, I know he's pretty well booked up in July, August at this point. So I think the next date will probably be October 2023. Again, we may try to get one more squeezed in before that, but I have a bad feeling it's not going to be possible. Sorry to say such a thing. And we do like to combine these tours with our Northwest East Slope tour because, you know, those tours are like $3,000 and close to 400 species. So it's, you know, it's nice to be able to do both. Though truly most people like a 10-day vacation is plenty. So we'll see where that goes. But I think October 2023, that date I blasted is out there. And again, we will get out the website with new schedules and everything. And our pricing does describe all the stuff that's included and not included and all that stuff. Any other questions in there? There you go. I'm glad a lot of you are interested in the tour. I do think it's pretty awesome. And there you go.